Hello, this is Johnny Boy. As part of modeling rivers so that AI could cross them, I've also modeled the river current and allow objects to be floating in the river. And this is a sample mission that you'll be able to download and use for mission makers to replicate what's going on here. So I just placed a bunch of objects in the river, and then in a trigger gave a call to each one to float down the river. So there's a jerry can floating, nice little bunny floating on a pallet, a big log, a couple of dead guys, a barrel tilted at an angle so it looks better as it's floating, goat, a bottle, a damaged boat tilted at an angle smoking, and a smaller log. It's actually the same kind of log as that, but tilted at a different angle, and it's scaled down to be smaller so that you can use existing objects and scale them to make them appear different. There's some also some leaves. So this can add great immersion to any mission that's on a river. And it enables more mission possibilities as well. Like the barrel, for instance, I believe it was the Brockhausen SOG book where he detailed how there were Viet Cong were smuggling or transporting barrels of fuel down the river by floating it down the river, and there would be a couple of Viet Cong whose job it was to herd them down the river. So that could be a mission, is find that river and the barrels and do the mission. So anyway, how is this possible? Let's see how we do it in the editor. The sample mission will be posted for you to download and play with. So here in the editor, I've placed a bunch of objects already and given them names. Stab 1 for the stab boat, trunk 1 for the trunk, pallet 1, etc. They're just placed wherever you want them. You don't have to worry about the rivers because the rivers are already predefined by the SOG AI mod to have flow. So there was a series of points with direction set up in it. So if you put these things in the river, they're going to flow they're going to flow from this direction to that direction. And but you have to initiate the flow. So we use a trigger, and currently the player starts outside of the trigger zone. And once he walks into this trigger zone, he crosses the circle line, then this code will execute. So you can copy and paste this code. You could add more objects and give them names. So if I wanted to float a Jeep down the river, I could name it Jeep 1, place it in the river, and then give it a call to the script. So each one of the objects has its own has a call to the same script, where you pass in the object name as the first parameter, how fast you want it to flow down the river, the speed at which it floats, and the negative offset, so how low it's going to sit in the water. You want things to be submerged based on their weight. So a log should be about 2/3 or at least half submerged. So you tweak this level until it looks right to you. Like the barrel is submerged more than halfway. Body should be submerged about 2/3 of the way. And the final parameter, the fourth parameter, is optional, and that's how long this object will exist. By default, I believe it's 3 minutes, or you can set this a real high number if you don't want it to disappear. What will happen after 3 minutes or 300 seconds in this case is it will sink into the river and then be deleted. So these objects don't continue to take up resources. Some of them, like the stab boat, we've done a few more fancy things to it. So the standard call, so it starts floating down the river. But then we used a set vector up commands to tilt it at an angle so that it looks better as it's going down the river. And then we also created some smoke, a smoke object to attach to it to make it fancy. And similarly, the units, the dead units, to do something fancy, we take a live unit and give it a death animation, and then we run it down the river. So you can play with these examples. You can then cut and paste them. You could add multiple triggers up and down the river, multiple objects, and have another trigger so things float here. So if your mission has, the AI come across the river here, you'd have things float when they got within the area. So you could see it happen and make things more interesting. That's it. Hope you guys find it useful.